Shaped by Sound combines performance and conversation to capture the depth of the North Carolina music scene. Logan Chaucer and Sam Baker love surfing, classic rock, and being in a band. Together, they're the Blue Footed Boobies, a psychedelic blues rock duo from Wilmington, North Carolina. Their music is raw, it's filled with energy, and wrapped in a tie-dye nostalgia. Today on the Shaped by Sound podcast, Logan Chaucer and Sam Baker of the Wilmington-based psychedelic rock duo, the Blue Footed Boobies. So, since we're PBS North Carolina, I kind of want to start off the show a little bit like this. So the blue-footed booby is a marine bird native to subtropical and tropical regions of eastern Pacific Oceania.
It is.
It is one of 6 species of the genus Sula, known as boobies. It is easily recognizable by its distinct bright blue feet, which is sexually selected trait and a product of their diet. Males display their feet in an elaborate mating ritual by lifting them up and down while strutting before the female. So?
It's exactly how we date girls.
That's how we do it. Sounds like you know more about them than we do.
Well, since we're PBS, we kind of got to we got to bring the educational element into this.
For sure.
Yeah. So, whether you're from the eastern Pacific sides of this world or from Wilmington, North Carolina, we have the Blue Footed Boobies. Thanks for being in on the show.
Thanks for having us, man. We're stoked.
So, wanted to start out with, so Logan, you're from Wilmington.
I am,
is that right? Yeah. And Sam, you're from Kernersville?
Kernersville, translated in Wilmington in high school.
Right on. So I'll start out with you, Logan. What was it like sort of growing up in Wilmington?
I loved it, man. It was really cool. Wilmington's such a cool town.
Yeah.
When I was younger, it was a lot smaller than it is now. It's like really blown up because it's such a cool like beach town. But it's a really cool place. It's a college town, so you got a lot of like young people. It's got a really good music scene still to this day. But it's a hard place to leave,
Yeah.
It's kind of got a little bit of everything. The beach, cool downtown, historic downtown area, killer music scene, good restaurants, bars and stuff like that. So I love growing up in Wilmington, and I still live there now. So obviously I like it a good bit.
What about you, Sam?
Growing up in Kernersville, there wasn't a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
So I always remember growing up, I always sounded like this, kind of like, yeah, bro, yeah, dude. That Wilmington surfer sound.
Yeah.
So all my friends that grew up hunting and everything, they'd always make fun of me because of my accent. So when I moved to Wilmington, I was like, wow, other people sound exactly like me. I was like, this is my place, So, I love Wilmington now. I'll probably live there the rest of my life. Just the active lifestyle. You have the water, good music scene. Tons of activities. Everybody takes their health serious there too. So it's really, really cool in that aspect. So
yeah, that's great. And I'm kind of interested to know a little bit about your music origin stories as well. So,
sure, yeah.
Logan, when did you start to shred, my man?
Man, I think my Nana had bought me like a little toy guitar when I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe even younger than that. And I never like really knew how to play it when I was like so little.
Well, you were 5, right?
Yeah. But I just used to like mess around with it, and just like make noises with it. And then I kind of always had, like, my parents have great taste in music, and they always had, like instruments around. Like, they can't play anything. My dad, like, he once tried to learn the banjo. I'm sure he'll get a good chuckle out of that when he hears this. But they don't really, like, play instruments, but they always had, like, a keyboard or a guitar or just, like, something around the house that I would just, like, mess around with. And eventually, I just kind of started doing it a lot more, and here we are.
So did you have any sort of like formal training?
No, I'm basically self-taught. After I graduated high school, I went to Cape Fear Community College for 2 years for music, and like learned how to read music and took piano classes and guitar classes and all that. But and I'm sure it helped me a lot. But I don't really use any of it now. We kind of kind of just make our own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But that's probably like the extent of like the formal training that I've had in music.
Wow.
So
that's pretty wild that you're self-taught for the most part. I mean,
thanks,
especially
man.
the way that you play.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And Sam, what about you? When did you pick up the drums, start playing?
I was probably 8 years old, and my brother, he is a savant. He can play any instrument that he touches, and he plays it so well.
Really?
So he was always the musical-minded person of the family, and I was always kind of the athlete of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents tried to get me to go to drum lessons while he was taking guitar lessons, but I would never practice. My instructor would always be like, he's not doing his paradiddles. He's not doing anything. So eventually they gave up, and, you know, I was racing BMX and doing some other stuff at that time. So kind of just kept doing that. Didn't ever think I'd pick up an instrument ever again. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And then in like 2015, I broke my leg really bad and couldn't walk. Picked up the guitar, started teaching myself that. And then I started hanging out with musicians, met Logan, and he was looking for a drummer at the time. And he was like, dude, you should play the drums. You know, you should play the drums with me on the show I have in 2 weeks too. And I was like, I don't know any of your songs. I don't know really how to play anything other than like Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
And I just said, yeah. I mean, I think it took a few beers for him to convince me, but yeah, eventually he broke me down and we did it. And I remember sitting in your Honda Civic that night after the show, and you were like, hey, dude, you want to do this?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So the next week, I bought a $120 drum kit off Craigslist and started teaching myself on YouTube and listening to Nirvana and Dave Grohl drum, and just like wanted to kind of mimic what people looked like when they drummed.
Okay.
And not just like the complexity of it all, because I knew I was not good at drumming because I had just started. So I was like, I gotta make up for it by being animated, you know? So I would just like study a lot of videos and learn that way.
That's so interesting that you were looking at the way that people looked versus what they were actually doing. Do you feel like that's still, are you still studying that kind of stuff?
Definitely. I think I like playing with Logan. He had already built a fan base. So, you know, playing a live show, going from like not really playing to playing a live show in front of 250 people, you know, it's not like I had months to be able to sit in my parents' basement and like figure this stuff out. So I like immediately had to think of it from a performance perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, that always was definitely really, really heavy. Like what I thought about a lot is just the performance aspect of it. And I think that's how Logan probably feels too, is like we're performers first and foremost, and musicians also. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the performance aspect of it, like, for me, it goes hand in hand. Like, obviously, for me, like, the music is what comes first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, like, especially for us, like, the performance is, like, such a big part of what we do, you know? Like, the stage presence and, like, the, you know, how you look on stage and like, just how you get your music across is such a big part of like our performance.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that too about, you know, like having to jump on stage in front of all these people and play a show, because I'll never forget, like, we're playing Reggie's. You remember this?
Yeah.
We're playing Reggie's, and it was like one of the first big shows we'd ever played together, and it was like packed, like to the gills. Like they were like kicking people out, and just like, you know, people were like losing their minds. And like Sam was like, you know, if I remember correctly, like, you're definitely like a little nervous.
Oh
you know?
my God, I was terrified.
He's like, I want to throw up, dude. Like, I'm so nervous. And I was just like, man, like, trust me, this is going to be sick, dude. Like, I've done this so many times. Like, you're going to crush it. Like, you're going to do great. And after this, it's going to be, like, all gravy. And, like, we went on stage and played a hell of a show, and that was that. But, like...
Yeah. I remember I was completely sober, but I had blacked out. You know, like, the adrenaline and just the rush of endorphins. Just, like, we finished playing, and I was like, it's like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
You know? And then I was like, that's the drug I want to chase. I was like, that's going to be my fix. You know?
That's funny.
Well, that's, first of all, incredible story. And it seems like you tapped into something that you both knew was incredible. And I want to kind of follow up a little bit on talking about the performance side of it. How much of your performance is the energy and just the vibe of it? Like, why is that so meaningful to you all as you play?
I think like music is such like a connective thing. Like you're trying to, as a musician and as a performer, like you're trying to make sure that everyone's like really stoked and having a great time and all that. And like, you know, but you really like want to get your point across, you know, like musically or just like whatever you're trying to say. And I think like people connect, you know, through music almost more than anything that I've been a part of.
Yeah. So
like your performance has to like kind of reflect that. Like you have to engage your audience, you know, kind of on another level, I think. And I think that's something that we've tried to do really, you know, really well over our time together, is just like really like engage your fan base and like, you know, give them whatever kind of energy you're trying to put out and really get your point across. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And well, what is the point that you're trying to get across?
For us, like, I mean, it varies like song to song.
Yeah.
You know, like music's such an emotional thing for me. You know what I mean? Like every song contains like a different sort of feeling and a different sort of emotion. So like some songs are like very like rock oriented, you know, and you're like, or like party oriented, you know, like you're wanting your audience to like have a good time, or, you know what I mean? And then like we've got songs that are like more, you know, like not as high energy, not as like high tempo, that are more like kind of like emotional songs that people connect to. And you know, everybody like receives like musical messages differently. Like one song could mean this to one person, and then to somebody else it could mean something entirely different.
Yeah.
But really just like connecting with your audience is like such a big part of like our live performance.
Yeah.
You know?
And when do you feel like, are there times where you're like also picking that energy up from the audience as well and just feeding off of it?
Totally.
Yeah. What's that like?
Sam, you want to take this one? I mean,
I think it's pretty incredible. Like to kind of reverse engineer that question, it's like a lot of the things that I get from watching other bands perform, you know, or like I have role models or mentors that I look up to and I want to experience their world and kind of jump into it. Like my perception of them and what they're outputting, I'm able to kind of take away and kind of transfer that to my own life and like things that I have going on. You know, it's like, I think when you look at an artist, it's a little bit more complex than just the sounds that they're creating. You know, it's their lifestyle, who they are off the stage, what they're doing, you know. I think we have like the ability to connect with audiences through action sports, you know, like for my wakeboarding background, Logan's surfing background. You know, we've had some really great opportunities doing stuff with Alliance Wakeboarding Magazine, and all these big companies. Like Taiga Boats have used our music in some of their promotional videos and stuff through those connections. So I think it's like, you know, a lot of those kids and people that want to like get stoked on music and that music fires them up to go do some like insane tricks and stuff, they can like easily identify with our music because they're like, okay, that's what they're doing, you know? And then same with kind of like Logan and stuff, you know, he's like, was a collegiate basketball player and stuff. So it's like that crowd and those people can connect through him and the thing he's doing. And that can be their like walk-on songs and like just stuff like that. So I think it's a really broad spectrum. But I know that to me, it's really important to use the music to connect with people in these other facets of life, you know, whether that's construction or action sports and things like that. And that's kind of the bridge that closes that gap.
Yeah. So are you saying sort of that you want people to come and see your show or listen to your music and then pick up on you two as people making it and know that they can ride this metaphorical wave with you and just be whatever they want to be?
Yeah,
and
hopefully get inspired.
Take that energy and push it forward into something new, exciting, and whatever they can do.
Yeah, and I will say, like, going back to your question about like kind of feeding off the energy of the crowd, like that's something that Sam does really well. It's kind of why like I was like, threw that one to you, is like, if the vibes are high, like if the crowd is really stoked and like really having a good time, like, it just enhances our performance. You know what I mean? I think when it's like super high energy, like last weekend we played the Lighthouse Beer and Wine Festival. And, obviously it's always a great crowd. Everyone's like drinking beer, and like, it's like my buddy Will Thomas, he ran the merch for us, and he was like, this is like a home game for you guys. And I was like, yeah, that's like a really good like analogy. Like, that's a really good way to put it. But like shows like that are so high energy, like we're like trying to also like, match their energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're like, if we're like feeling like we're like a little bit too boring, like, we got to like pump it up, bring the vibes up a little bit, and I think we definitely did that. But like, it's kind of like every show's different. Like some shows, I think I told Jody this yesterday. I was like, some shows you play for like thousands of people, and it's just like insane. It's like the sickest thing ever. And then some shows you play for like a few people, and it's like still awesome that we get to do it. And they're basically going to get the same like content, like same show. But, I feel like personally, when like in more intimate settings, like I kind of dial back the stage theatrics a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, we both do.
And focus more on like, if these cats came out to see us today, if they like took the time out of their schedule to come like see us, like I'm going to get the music like super dialed. Like I'm going to give them like the best show that I can put out. You know what I mean? Like for me, in terms of guitar and vocals, like, I want to make sure my performance is like just super dialed. So I might not be like moving around as much, or like Sam might not be like, swinging his arms as much and bashing the cymbals quite as hard. But like, in a setting like that, it's like, I want to be like super tight. So they're like, these guys are, killing it. They're giving us what they got,
Yeah.
So
it's pretty interesting that you say that, because first of all, it just shows your dedication to what you want to do and how people listen to you and perceive you. But I would say as an audience member, I don't know if I would know too much of the difference between you being like, I'm going to focus and super dial, versus you all just like getting crazy with it and having fun. It feels like two the same. So it's interesting to hear you say that. I've never really heard anybody really talk about that before. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of guitar playing, like if you're like doing all kinds of crazy stuff on stage and moving around a whole lot, sometimes there's less like technicality to your playing, just because like if I can sit here and just lock in, like I'm going to make sure that I hit every note, and just like be, super in it, you know what I mean? But like when you're just going nuts and like
playing behind your head
and doing all that, it can kind of be like a little less tight, just because you're just like, there's so much motion and so much like a little bit more variation in your performance. But yeah, I mean, like you kind of gotta, and that's like something that like I really dig about us, is like our show kind of does like vary based on, setting, like what the setting is, like what the crowd's like. You're gonna get a little bit, of a different booby show, like every time you come to see us. And I think that's cool, because, there's people that have seen us like 30 times.
Right.
And they're like, oh, dude, this show was so sick, but like you guys did this different, It's like gives the audience like something to kind of like latch on to, and just something that's different, instead of just being rigid and being like, we're gonna do this 10 songs every night for this entire like run of shows that we're gonna do, and we're gonna do them the exact same way,
Yeah.
There's got to be like fun. There's got to be some freedom for variation in what you're doing. So,
and it keeps people coming back.
Exactly.
Right. To see the new thing. Like, what will you all do next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's like reading the room. You can, like, if the crowd's kind of starting to nod their heads and headbang, I'm like, this is my opportunity. We're doing a punk beat and we're going to start headbanging and getting after it. And then usually the crowd will start, headbanging and start getting like jumping up and down. And so it's like, we'll change sections of the song to accommodate what the crowd's doing and try to just feed off of each other. And those shows are so much fun.
I bet.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you all sort of communicate with each other, like that message of like, okay, it's like, let's maybe turn this up a little bit more?
It's so funny. Like, I don't think we've ever been asked that question, but like, it's sort of like an intuition thing.
Like chemistry.
Yeah.
For
like
sure.
We've just done it so many times. And like this last show we played, like, I was like, I just kind of like look at him and be like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You know what I mean? But like without saying it, I'm like, you know, kind of like looking at him, and then like, we just kind of figure it out, you know? And it's like, there's like different cues that we kind of go off of. Like we can read each other really, really well after doing it for years, you know? But there's never been like any like language per se. If like something has to change on stage, you kind of just kind of write it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You like look over at each other, and if Logan's eyes are really big, and then I'm like, my little antennas are going up, I'm like, something's about to go down, and I'm ready for it, you know? And then I'll like listen to a couple of the notes he's playing. And like you said, we play with each other so much that like a lot of the times each show we do incorporate something new into a few of these songs. Like,
Definitely.
We're like, wow, we've never played that song like that before, you know? But I think it's been like that since day one though. Like we didn't have to like learn each other or like have a curve or like study each other like that. It just like it was so
Supernatural.
it was just extremely natural and just was there. And I haven't experienced that with many other musicians or friends. So,
Yeah, never.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And like, it is like going back to like how, you know, your set can kind of change sort of in the opposite way. Like if we're playing like a big show where or like a music festival, you know, where, you know, the exposure's high and you're trying to engage more people, you're trying to win fans. Like we do kind of taper our set to be like, this is like what we're about. Like these 10 songs are like what we're about, and we're going to play them like really tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of times we get hired to do like 1.5-hour sets, 2-hour sets, like 3-hour sets. And like in situations like that, that's what happened. Just 3 hours or a marathon, man.
Vomit music, like the most random new stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like we've made new songs from that.
Literally.
Like,
Really?
Dude, we need to take a mental note of that. We need to do that again. you know?
Yeah, or just like new riffs, new like drum patterns, like whatever. But when you're on stage for 3 hours, and like we play some covers, like kind of like selective about like what we decide to cover. Like it's like Hendrix, Zeppelin. We do that Beatles cover, you know, stuff like that. Sabbath, we've been covering Sabbath
has been
because
super
that's
fun
super
lately.
fun. They're one of my favorite bands. But like 3 hours is like
It's a long time.
a long time. Like we're not a cover band. Like we can't just like be like, oh, somebody's like Freebird. Oh, we got that one. Like, no, we don't got it, you know? So we play a lot of like originals that, like in a long set like that, you know, we play a lot of originals that we don't do all the time. And also your set kind of gets looser. You can kind of do more of like whatever you want, you know, as opposed to like I said earlier, like if you're playing like a festival or like if you're opening for like a big act, like a big national act or something like that, like you want to like keep it more tight, you know, really get your like main, you know, songs across, you know, so that you can like win more fans and engage more people, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dave Grohl has a really cool quote about that. And he said, I'd rather watch the drummer, like instead of watching like a really tight drummer that's really technical and really good, he's like, I'd rather watch the drummer that's on the verge of like collapsing off of this cliff. You know, it's like he's barely holding it together and he's kind of like pushing it, and he's just like a little sloppy, but like still super tight. But he's just like, he's riffing, but he's just teetering on that like fulcrum of like, you know, and I always thought that was really cool. And that kind of gave me some like confidence going into it. I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be fun and exciting.
You both surf, right? Is the way that you play music sort of like the way you would approach surfing? It just seems like, just hearing your analogy there, it just seems like that when you get on the edge like that, riding that edge and just being on this teeter-totter of will I like control and not having control.
I call that flow state.
Yeah.
And I use that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's flow state, just unplugging and allowing things to just happen.
Right.
You know, and just trusting in the process and trusting your body and your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like in terms of like how music like compares to surfing for me, like you're not really in control when you're in the ocean.
Right.
You know, you're not really in control at all. I mean, like it's just like nature. It's just like everything's so different. And like, you know, we, like I said earlier, we have different sort of kinds of songs. Like some songs are very like more heavy, more like rock, you know, rock and roll. Some songs are kind of more relaxed. And that's kind of how surfing is. Like sometimes you'll go surf and it's like very, you know, glassy and fun and just easy. And other times you'll go surf
Still overhead.
and it's like pumping and like
you up.
windy as hell. And, you know, like you're getting worked and, you know, but it's all super fun. Like it's just, you know, and that's kind of like with music, like, live in terms of like live performance, like you never really know what you're going to get, you know, like same thing as like going for a surf. Like you never really know what's going to happen. But you could walk on stage, and this is like one of the cool things about us, I think, is like, we're not like when you see us play a show, like it's just us doing it.
Right.
Like there's no click track, there's no backing, you know, there's tracks, there's nothing. It's just me and Sam up there. And like anything can kind of happen. You can go out and play the best show of your life and everyone's stoked. Mm-hmm. Or like we've had shows where like a cable goes bad, or like Sam busts a drum head, or like just like, and usually it's never like really performance based. It's usually like, is our gear gonna, you know, work? And 99% of the time it does, but you just never know.
Yeah.
You know, or like yesterday during rehearsal, I was like, I'm going to dial it back today with the vocals because I don't want to lose my voice. Mm-hmm. Like I'll never forget one time we played Brooklyn Arts Center for Charlie Maltby's like benefit thing. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
And I think it was like in April. And I thought I had like allergies, you know, because of pollen. And I got sick like the day of and lost my voice. And like we had to play in front of all these people, and like we made it work.
You're down in honey and water.
I was like drinking honey and like mixing it with emergency and like drinking like gallons of tea and stuff.
Whatever will work.
Whatever will work.
Yeah.
You know? And it didn't work. I mean, I was just like, I sounded like a 90-year-old chain smoker, but people dug it. I mean, it is what it is. But, you know, when you're in our position, and especially me with like my voice is like, I feel like the least controlled instrument, you know, that we have on stage, because like, you know, you could have allergies and your voice just doesn't sound right or something like that.
Yeah.
But I always try to like really, you know, take all the precautions I can to make sure that like I can sing as well as I can, because if somebody's paying to see you, you know, if someone's like taking time out of their schedule to come see you, like personally, like I want to give them, you know, the best show I possibly can. Like you got to give the people what they want. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's like taking time out of their busy schedule to come to a rock show, like you better be really good.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, here's the thing. You all are really good.
Thank you.
But it's also awesome that you think like that and keep that audience mindset. I mean, that's huge. And I could say that definitely translates to your music too. So one thing I want to jump back into just really quickly, because you were talking about being a two-piece, right? And you have to be, it's just you two. So it seems like you have to keep things as tight as you can or be together and really be on the same wavelength. Why did you sort of choose to keep it just the two of you all?
I think you kind of just said it right there. Like me and Sam are just on the same wavelength, you know, like it's like we started doing it and that's how we did it. And like, it's worked so far.
Yeah.
So we were just like, you know, if it's working and like, and we really enjoy just doing it like that. You know what I mean? Like for me, just having to rely on one guy, you know, my best buddy, is a lot easier than having so many different moving pieces, and like we just have that sort of connection where, I know he's going to be, on that same wavelength with me. So it just works for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like, I've said this to people before. It's like almost everybody that plays music can play music really well, like even better than us. But it's with us being friends before we started playing together, there's that level of like mutual respect, those boundaries, those guidelines. There's just the like support with one another that when you start getting a bunch of musicians together who are strangers and we're like, let's make some music, let's do that. Then you start getting like different opinions and button heads and stuff. And I think that the success that we've experienced so far can be largely attributed to our friendship, and our just respect for one another. And I think that that's extremely important.
Sure.
And I think that's a make it or break it point for a lot of bands,
Definitely.
I've seen so many good bands, so good. Some of my favorite bands, and they've split up just because they just couldn't keep their stuff together,
Right.
And
is it sort of a part of it where it's become like when it stops becoming fun, then you stop doing the thing?
It's always so
it's
fun.
It's going to be fun forever.
Right? Yeah. Fun for us.
But yeah, I think with the two-piece, we've talked about it. It's like, okay, if we get a bass player, it'll kind of fill out the sound. But also it'll distract from what him and I have going on and the freedom that we get to experience because we're able to fill out so much space while we're playing. Bass and drums stick together, So if we had a bass player, I would have to keep playing to the bass line and keep it in line with what he's doing. So my artistic freedom would be limited now. And same with Logan's guitar playing, with a rhythm guitar and things like that. So we have kind of taken that and run with it and decided, this really works and it's a unique situation. Two pieces are unique, but it works for us. So we definitely want to keep going that route. And I think we've talked about like one day when we're playing like Bonnaroo or like something huge, having some bass player pop up on stage and some backup singers and dancers and stuff, that would be sick. But yeah, I mean, for right now, the
just y'all,
it rules.
It does rule. It's. I want to kind of also tap into this too because it feels like it's reminiscent of the music that you're trying to play, right? This really raw blues rock that's sort of filling in with all this psychedelic rock too, and it does seem like you're kind of the way like being a two-piece really speaks to that.
Definitely.
So if you were to add somebody, it might change it, right?
Yeah, I think like Sam said, if you add pieces, like obviously there's going to be change, but we do like to have that kind of freedom. Because in me, like in essence, like that's kind of what rock and roll is just like doing whatever you want, like we get on stage and like if we want to do something, like we just do it. And like with more pieces, like it definitely changes the vibe. And like, and some people are like, you need to get a bass player. Like, you guys are great, but you'd be even better with a bass player. And like in some respects that may be true. But it definitely just changes the whole dynamic of what we kind of do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like Sam said, like, hopefully one day we're like packing stadiums and like we'll hire some other pieces if we need to.
Yeah.
But for now, in terms of like the live outfit, like it's definitely two-piece for sure. And like, we're getting ready to really start working on this new album that's hopefully going to come out next year. And like, there's songs on there that are definitely not going to be just two pieces. Like I'm going to track bass on some songs. There's a song that's going to have piano in the background, stuff like that. But it's still just going to be me and Sam doing it. It's going to sound that way on the record, but in terms of like our live show, it'll just be the same sort of outfit.
As far as like making that music like that, recording it like that, you always kind of imagine it just being you two live, versus just having other people in because you want to keep sort of the authenticity to you two. Mm-hmm. But then why would so then adding the other layers on the record, I'm wondering, like, are you worried that people would be like, oh, so they're gonna add they're going to add piano now, or they're going to add bass, or...
Yeah, I think like some people might think that way, but I also think that like not all music is meant to be performed the exact way that it's recorded. Does that make sense?
Well, unpack that for me.
Like that song that we did yesterday in rehearsal, like Wasted. That song's gonna have bass and keys. I'm gonna play bass and piano on it. And like on the record, I think it's gonna sound really good when you play it in your car, or like how I intended it to be, you know, consumed as like if you're listening to it in a bar with your friends at 1:15 in the morning, it might give it that extra, you know, just kind of like low end, or, you know, some shiny keys on there is gonna sound really cool.
Yeah.
But when we play it live, it's more of like a punk rock song, you know, and it's going to be a punk rock song either way. But like I said, I think like, like Hendrix is like God to me, basically. I like have heard everything he's ever done. And a lot of his stuff, like in the studio, it sounds great for being heard on the record or being heard on the radio, or like if you're in your car or whatever, you know, it sounds awesome for what they did on that record, you know? But then like when you hear him on stage, he's doing whatever he wants with it. Like he's like taking it in different directions and like, you know, creating something new out of that, like in a live setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like some of our live stuff might sound a little bit different than what it sounds like on the record, but, and there may even be songs on this album that like we don't even perform live, you know, because some songs are just kind of birthed in the studio. Like they're just meant to be like, you know, like a studio song or like something that you listen to. And some songs are more like meant to be performed live.
Right.
Like there's certain jams that we do that we have so much fun playing, you know, and they vary a little bit every time we play them. And like, that's like a song that like you want to perform live and you want to kind of do a little differently and have fun with.
Yeah.
You know?
Are there songs that you, so like when you identify that, is there something like, oh, like, well, like I've got this song, let's record it, but this is one that I think we should really push live. Is there things that you're like thinking like that as you're making them?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, it goes back to kind of the same thing. Like sometimes like Sky is Falling. Like when I came up with that song, like me and Sam played it and he was like, dude, that's gonna be a banger. You know what I mean? Like that was one that immediately just kind of clicked, you know, and we were like, we're taking this in the studio, knocking it out. We're going to make it sound as good as we can. And this is going to be like one of our big live songs. And the recording, you know, of that song, that like the release version is literally us playing live.
It's a live recording.
It's a live recording, you know? And then like the guitar solo I overdub just because you don't want to lose the main riff in that sort of section.
Yeah.
But like when you hear that song, like that is like a live take. And that's also kind of testament to our buddy Chase O'Neill.
He rules.
Big Root Studios.
Yeah.
He's great. And he like we must have done that song, 10 times in the studio.
He did not stop on us. You know, I remember there was the drum breaks, like the 3 drum breaks I do like 3/4 of the way through the song. And I thought I was nailing them. And he was just like, nah, dude. You gotta do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I was like, geez, this guy is awesome. Like he has the guts to not like inflate your ego or anything and just be like, nah, man, that just wasn't good enough. It wasn't right enough. And that's the type of people we want to work with and have that level of honesty and things like that. And kind of like on the live verse recording stuff, I know like for me, the marketability of some of these songs is extremely important. I mean, we wanted to be in a car commercial one day, you know, like Tygo wakeboarding boats using it in their ATX boat release video and stuff like that. You know, I think for what Logan was saying, having those additional layers and that bigger studio performance, it makes it easier because as a musician, that's how you're going to make a living. That's how you're going to keep the lights on, is people paying royalties to be able to use your songs and getting it out there to the masses. So I think that's really important, and we don't want to kind of taint the live performance aspect either. You know, we want to make sure that what people hear in their cars, they can still hear with just two people on stage. So there is like that really fine line of making it bigger on the studio recordings, but not too big that whenever someone comes to our show, they're like, that sucks, you know? So
exactly.
That's kind of a fun dance to dance. And I think, you know, that's the cool, exciting part about the studio is like, all right, let's make this really tight, sound really good. For me, when I listen to music, I like have like action square edits in my brain. I'm like driving down the road and I'm like, oh, look at those hills. Someone's just doing like a can on a dirt bike and gapping that, you know, or whatever. I mean, so the music.
Wakeboard pond.
Yeah, we passed ponds. We're like, wakeboard pond. But like, I think that's what is cool about the studio recordings is that it allows the listener's mind to have that type of freedom, you know. If it's a love song, then you're thinking about your crush, you know.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, we want to make that stuff as tight and as relatable as possible.
So you all were kind of speaking to this a little bit. Want to tap into it more, but where do you sort of see yourself going then? It seems like you've got these like grand ambitions for what you want to do. So what do you want to do?
This.
Yeah.
I want to continue to play music and make records forever, you know, and I'm 29, Sam's 30, you're 32 now?
Don't
out him.
Sorry, I don't want to out you. Like, you know,
Sam, I'm 34, but I'm doing it better.
We're definitely like, you know, getting older. I mean, we've been doing it for years. But like, I don't ever plan on not like performing as Blue Footed Boobies. I don't know about you. Like, I just, you know, I want to continue to do this. And like, in terms of goals and aspirations, like, it'd be great if we could be the biggest, most popular rock band in the world, you know, but if that's not the case, like, hopefully we can, you know, really make something out of ourselves and our name and our music and, you know, be a little bit more recognized and make a good living, like, you know, playing and touring and making records, you know? Mm-hmm. But as long as I'm, you know, touring with this guy and recording and playing really killer live shows and making a little bit of money, like, I'm stoked. Yeah. You know? So it'd be great to be, like I said, it'd be great to win a Grammy or like do something crazy like that, something huge. But if that, you know, never materializes and we still get to do this, like, you know, it's kind of like one of those things, like, it just feels like what I'm supposed to do is like make music, you know, play guitar, sing, make music. And, you know, I think Sam can kind of relate to that. Just like what we love to do. It's just the most fun that I've ever had, you know. Some of the best times of my life have been traveling around, playing shows with this guy, hanging out, meeting new people.
Van-versations.
We always like have really good.
That's a new podcast.
Exactly. We're gonna start a podcast of us just like talking about stuff in the van.
Ooh, what's the topic in the Van-versations?
What was our last Van-versations topic? Honestly, like a lot of stuff we've kind of already covered, like in this podcast, talking about like playing different venues and just like a lot of the conversations we have in the van too are like industry related. Like music industry related. Like we've been doing it for years and like you see things change and, you know, and see like, especially like COVID was like such a crazy, like, you know, shock to the music industry. Mm-hmm. And we're finally like completely on the other side of it. I feel like, you know, like COVID's still around, but it's not like we're like having to play like drive-in shows or like live streams or stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, like we're back out and like playing shows and traveling around and stuff like that, you know. But just like how the industry's changed and how like venues have changed and
Would you rather?
Would you rather?
Would you rather rules are Van-versations?
Yeah.
90% of the time.
That's a good point. Yes. Well, there's a lot of like dumb stuff that we talk about too, just like traveling around. But
So would you rather play in Black Sabbath or with Jimi Hendrix?
oh my God.
Dude, Mitch Mitchell rule. I kind of get to play. I'm like a little bit of a Mitch Mitchell, and you're a little bit of a Hendrix.
I was gonna say, like,
yeah, we're kind of trying to do that.
We have a similar relationship to Jimmy and Mitch because like Sam gets wild sometimes, and like obviously I'm like going off and doing crazy stuff. But like if you look at the Hendrix experience, like Hendrix and Mitch are both kind of like out there just experimenting, doing wild, you know, stuff, and then like Noel's like holding it down. But we don't really have somebody to hold it down, so we both kind of have to hold it down a little bit.
Sometimes we go off the rails,
and then sometimes we go off the rails, but it is nice to have that freedom. But to answer that question, it's so hard because like Hendrix is like the greatest of all time. Like he's the most badass guitar player to ever live.
Yeah.
So like it would be so sick to play with him, but also like I'd have to play bass, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't play guitar in the Hendrix experience. I mean, like, I don't know. That guy didn't need a sideman. He just, you know, like that's, you know, I don't think it's like possible to really like play guitar. I mean, I guess for Hendrix, you know, you can play rhythm for him, but like he's just so he's so far beyond anybody else.
How about this? Would you rather party with Hendrix or with Ozzy?
Ooh.
Ozzy all day for me.
Dude, you're a brave man. Sam.
I was gonna say, like,
it'd be like a week-long party, but
Yeah, we might never see you again.
yeah, you might not survive an Aussie party. I feel like Hendrix, you might just get stoned and play guitar and hang out, have a few beers. But can I just say both to
Yes.
each of those questions?
You sure can.
I would love to play guitar in Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
To play along Iommi would be insane. I'm sure you'd rather play for Black Sabbath.
I think so. Did you know Tony Iommi's actually missing
What?
the tips of his fingers?
Yeah.
No.
He worked in a sheet metal factory. So he'd run the sheet metal, clamp down, run metal, clamp down.
Oh, no.
And on his fretboard hand, it cut off, I think it's like 3 of his fingers, like
Three
the
of
first
his
knuckles.
fingers, yeah.
So he's full on nubbing it out on all of these riffs. And it's awesome.
Well,
I mean,
he's
the
also
greatest guitar players ever.
Yeah.
He like developed those like thimbles for
Fake-
guitar players. That's why he has like a different sound because
It's like a wax
it's,
fingertip.
it's not even his real fingers like playing.
Right.
Like it's like something, there's like a substance between his fingers and this
Necessity
guitar string.
breeds innovation.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Sabbath and the Hendrix Experience, definitely like 2 of my top 5 bands. So
Sorry to lay that hard Van-versation on you.
one of
but
the
I
hardest
thought I had
questions I
to,
think I've ever had
in
to
the
answer.
moment. Want to also kind of tap into another part of this show here. So we, whenever we have folks on, we like to ask them, you know, what shapes you? Like how are you shaped by sound? How would you all respond to that? How do you think that you all are shaped by sound?
I think, you know, sound has been a huge enhancement drug for me throughout life. Even when I was a little kid, you know, when I was like really young, I was like, I want to be a professional wakeboarder. So I was doing everything I could through middle school and high school to do that. And to tap into like that next level of energy, or like coming home from school, I'm gassed, I don't have anything else to give out there. Flip on some Linkin Park or some Blink-182, and then it's just like go time again, you know? You're ready to roll. Or like when I'm laying in bed at night, visualizing like tricks I wanted to learn and stuff, I'm listening to the music and making these edits in my brain to the sounds and to the drops of like the drums and things like that. And I think, you know, I'd like to get me through college, I'd listen to a lot of Tom York and Radiohead, you know, to help me dial in and focus. So it's just, I'm hardly ever not listening to music. And there's a type of music for every part of my life. You know, if I'm hanging out with my girlfriend and trying to set the mood, you know, throw on some Rick James. I mean,
I'm Rick James.
But yeah, I mean, I think music's constantly shaping me, and I get to manipulate it to my needs, you know, and what I'm trying to accomplish or achieve at that moment. And I think that as a drummer in our band, I think that's what I'm trying to kind of push out there is like, we are a higher energy band and I want to fire people up, you know, and that's a big goal. But yeah, music's always shaping us. And
yeah, I like music, and just sound in general has always been such a huge like part of my life. Like I just can't even remember a time when I didn't have like some sort of like musical instrument in my room where I could just kind of go and mess around with, you know? But like when I was really young, this is kind of funny. My mom has told me this like over and over again. Like I guess I was like, I didn't speak for a very long time when I was a young kid. And they were like, oh my God, he's going to be mute, you know? But I had like a vast like sound vocabulary. Like I wouldn't like speak, but my mom could like point to something and I would like make that sound.
And now you talk more than anyone I've ever met.
Yeah. So like sound like has always had such a like profound effect on like my state of consciousness and even like my body. Like now when I hear a song that like, either like you hear a new song that you've never heard before and you really love it and like connect with it, it's just like such a incredible like physical feeling for me. Like it has such a, you know, huge physical effect on my body and like, or like I'm one of those people like I'm going to listen to the same song 100,000 times because I love it. You know, I love listening to new stuff. You know, and I'm like constantly trying to take in new music. But like, you know, if there's like a Hendrix song or like a Beatles song or like Zeppelin or like something that I've heard like 10,000 times, like pretty much gives me the same reaction, you know, that it did the first time. But in terms of like, you know, musical influences, like what you listen to like really does like shape your life and like kind of what type of person you are, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like music is such a huge, like influential factor in people's lives. And I think like, you know, Sam and I are different and we've like been brought up on different music, and that kind of like, you know, influences how we sound as a band. Obviously, like the stuff that you're taking in is going to be, you know, more correlated to the stuff that you're putting out, I think. So, yeah.
That's awesome. It's great because we've asked this question a lot and we get such tremendous answers from everybody and they're all different. And it's really cool to hear y'all say that. So thanks. I wanted to tap into a little bit of the set that we've got for y'all today.
Okay.
When we were reaching out to you and asking you about influences and things you'd like to be surrounded by and sort of the vibe and theme of your show, you're kind of talking to us like, hey, you know, like what we play is fun. It's groovy. It's a party. You know, that's what we want to be surrounded by. And we kind of landed on this set here that you see today. For y'all, like how is that set sort of a reflection of your sound?
I mean, I think it kind of looks like my living room.
It looks like Logan's living room. It does.
Like a lot of the stuff, especially like, you know, like the stuff I was brought up on, you know, like my favorite acts are like obviously like, you know, Hendrix, Zeppelin, like the late 60s is like my favorite like period of music. You know, I'm a huge like Bob Dylan fan. I listen to a ton of Bob Dylan. Clapton. The Yardbirds were huge for me growing up. But like And all that stuff is just directly related to the set that we've created. You know what I mean? Or you guys created, really. We brought some amplifiers and some random stuff, but you guys did a killer job on that.
Shout out to Jody.
Shout out Jody. Jody, you crushed it. But yeah, like the late 60s stuff, like all the psychedelic rock and like the groovy stuff, like that's like, very like directly related to the set. But I also like my biggest influences other than like Hendrix, Beatles, Dylan, Zeppelin, guys like that, Clapton, are like Freddie King is like one of my favorite artists of all time. I don't know if you guys
I don't know Freddie King. Who was Freddie King?
He was a blues guitar player and singer in the 1960s. I mean, I think he had stuff coming out in the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they called him the Texas Cannonball. He's a big old guy.
Hell of a name.
6'6", 340 pounds. But he just has like that voice that you just can't replicate. Like his voice is just like, if I could sing like anybody, I can sing like anybody. I'd probably be like Ozzy or Robert Plant or Freddie King. But his guitar playing is just so like, he's just like, everything is like, it sounds like everything is just totally planned out. Like he just knows exactly what he's going to do and exactly how he wants it to sound. And he just has so much like soul and like feeling in his guitar playing and his vocals. Like, so he was like such a big like influence on me. Freddie King, BB King, Albert King, like, you got to like go through those guys as a guitar player. Like you have to like kind of like,
Yeah.
But he's like my favorite. My Feeling for the Blues, that album, if you've never heard it, go home and listen to it like today. It's unbelievable. But yeah, like a lot of like, 1960s, 70s, like blues guys, like I'm super, super down with. Robert Johnson is one of my favorite guys to listen to. But like in terms of the set, like that is like the kind of vibe that like we sort of give off as a group, I think, is like sort of like a groovy, like, 1960s, 1970s, like psych rock band, but just with a more like modern, like rock sort of flair to it.
Yeah.
And I think you guys did an incredible job, like kind of getting that point across. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
Sam, you have anything to add to that?
I'd say the Boobies is a lifestyle.
It is.
And like with the skateboards and the surfboards, and we're like an extremely active band outside of the music, and that's really important to us, and y'all captivated that with the vintage skateboards and
those are so cool.
And everything. It's just when you look at the set, it's vibrant, it is full of life and creativity, and kind of just gets the brain churning, and I feel like a lot of the things that are incorporated into it have a direct correlation to our lives, whether it's the pizza boxes, the Vans shoes, the Beatles posters, our friend Sean, we have some of his artwork up on the walls, and
Red Eye Laboratories.
Yeah, I mean everything on there is spot on. The Thrasher skateboard magazines, even those like small details y'all threw in there, awesome.
Shout out Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super funky. It's really groovy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like it exuberates creativity.
Well, it does feel like we get to go on that, as Logan, you were kind of speaking to it a little bit earlier, you like to kind of just explore these musicians, and I guess sort of I kind of just like pictured you just sitting in your living room and like listening to one of their records. It feels like we get to sit with you in that living room now and experience it with you all, which is really cool.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you guys created a really killer space to do that. And I think hopefully like when this airs, like the audience will kind of feel kind of at home, like, listening to us and watching us like in that setting. Cause it does feel like we're like playing in our living room. Like when we were first practicing together, we used to set up in Sam's living room.
Yeah.
Like his roommates would be gone. He'd be like, my roommates are going to be gone for an hour. Like, come on in. So yeah, I think like it'll definitely like get that point across, like create kind of like a comfortable sort of space for people to experience us.
We can vicariously live a part of the booby lifestyle.
Bingo.
I do want to start this segment just quickly with a story. I'll make this fast, I promise.
All right.
The first time I saw y'all was, I guess, 2022, maybe, like just after the pandemic.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, a family friend of mine, it's actually kind of a tough story, but they had recently passed away, and they were like a massive Beatles fan. But we were gonna get together, like all of us were gonna get together in Topsail, and kind of get together, have a little memorial, and then just like, do the ashes into the ocean thing. Mm-hmm. And again, his name is Billy, and who passed away, and Billy's massive Beatles fan, and we're all sort of like feeling it. We're come together from all across the state and the country, and just kind of hanging out together and being some sort of sad. And we were meeting at this restaurant, and you all, the stage for Ocean Fest, I think it was called. Was
Ocean Fest, yeah.
Literally next to this restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And it was you two. And I swear, like, as we were all showing up and saying hello and, like, kind of getting together, y'all went into Don't Let Me Down by the Beatles. And I've never felt, like, more, like, connected to a place and time via music than that. And it just kind of all sent us. We all started crying. We were just like, oh my gosh, like, what are the chances of this? And then after that, a friend of mine, his name's Thomas, he lives in Wilmington. I think he met you at a bar once and told you this story.
I totally remember, yeah.
And you were like, well, we'll play that again sometime, man. We'll play it for you, I guess. And I think the next time we saw you was in Beaufort. Mm-hmm. And that was like a year later or so. And y'all played that song and gave Tom a shout out. Yeah. And I remember being like, man, these guys are just incredible. Like, truly. So, like, thank you so much for being here and doing what y'all do, because you do connect with people on a level that is, in some ways, just like really incredible and transcendent. So thank you.
Man, thank you so much. Yeah. That really means a lot,
It does mean a lot.
That's such a huge part of why we do it, is like, just like connecting with people, like music is just something that brings people together. And like one of my favorite things too, especially like, by the way, like that Topsail show, like if you guys were at that restaurant, I'm sure we were just blowing the windows out of it. Dude. It was so loud, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that's why I think we were like, cause like the emotion that you were putting into that song, like we were like writing that with you.
Oh yeah.
Like it was just one of those things where like,
love that.
What an incredible take on this song.
Thanks, man.
So yeah, it's funny that you say that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, like one of my favorite things, especially like when we play like a home game, a hometown show in Wilmington, like is like everybody just comes out just to, to see us. But I feel like even more so, it's just like to see everybody that and like that you're friends with. It's like a huge reunion, and it's just like it makes me so happy to see, people that you love, like come out and see each other, because, like as you get older, you don't see your friends quite as much as you used to. Like when you're young, you see your friends every day, or like in college, you see your buddies every day. But like, as time goes by, those connections are kind of more few and far between.
For sure.
And it's like such a cool thing to have everybody come out and see you and just kind of like, reunite with each other. And like, one of the coolest things for me too is like, so many people have told me like, dude, I met my girlfriend, or like I met my wife at your show, like, awesome. That's like the coolest thing.
That is
it's
the
like,
coolest thing.
Because like, we're doing this and like people come to support us and have a good time and see us and see each other. Like, you just changed somebody's life.
Yeah. One of our best friends just had a baby, and while they were pregnant, they were like, this is their first concert. It was 3J's first concert. So it's like stuff like that's cool. I think one of my other favorite parts is like, we're both really close with our parents. Mm-hmm. So our parents come to a lot of our shows, and I don't know, for me, when we're playing and I see my mom and my dad kind of standing like front right stage or something, that's just the coolest feeling ever. And like Logan's parents are the same way. They're so supportive, and I don't know, that's just so incredibly special. Like when we played Greenfield Lake Amphitheater this past July or June, my dad came, and we have like photos of us after the show. Like his arms around me and stuff. I'm like, dude, that is the photo for the rest of my life that I'm going to have of my dad, you know, just like remember these special moments and stuff. And because there's an incredible amount of energy at some of these things, you know, and it's creates some really special moments.
For sure.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like you said, like seeing your folks, you know, like my mom, you know, she's the greatest human being ever. Like she doesn't make it to all our shows because they're like super packed and crazy a lot of times.
Right.
But when she does come, it's so awesome. And my dad, Paul, he's like one of my best buddies. He's like my best friend. Like, you know, besides, you know, Sammy, like, like he's like my best buddy. And like, he's been so supportive of us over the years. Like he's done so much for us. And like, he's just such a good dude and he loves good music, you know? Yeah. So like, he loves a good old booby show. Like he won't miss it. He'll be here today. So.
Paul's a legend.
Yeah, love you, Dad.
So I'd like to kind of just go through the set list.
Sure, yeah.
Start off with "Hooked on You."
Hooked like is like one of the original like booby songs. Like I think I wrote that song when I was like 19, maybe, like or 18 years old. But that's like a very like, you know, rock and roll sort of song. Like that's sort of like a high energy, like, you know, party song, if you will. You know what I mean? Like
drivey.
Those emotions you feel when you're 19 about a attractive woman. You know what I mean? Like it's just like a very raw sort of rock and roll song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like one of our favorite ones to play. Like we still do it every show. Like people want to hear us do it. So
top 3.
Yeah, we'll still do it, you know? And it's really fun. That's a really like fun one to do.
Yeah.
So,
what about "Fade Away"?
So "Fade Away" is like another kind of like original like song that I wrote like really early on, about the same time as like "Hooked on You," and it's kind of like instead of like, you know, a sort of straightforward rock song, there's some more like it's kind of like dancey, you know, more vibey song, not so in your face, a little bit more of like an emotional song where you just don't like, you have some kind of feeling and you just don't want it to go away. You know what I mean? And I think it's not like, when I say emotional, I don't think it's like a sad song. It's just like more kind of, it's just different than our like traditional sort of like rock numbers. It's more like it's in a minor key, so it you know makes some people feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
But that's also a really fun song for us to do because it's really like evolved over the last several years.
Yeah.
Like I think when we first started doing it, we were just kind of playing through it straight,
like pretty similar throughout the whole time. And like now we have like tempo changes and we'll go like speed it up, and then we'll do halftime when Logan's playing behind his head and stuff, which is really cool because it brings in that like really heavy hitting dynamic, but then it goes right back into the you know, so it's like really cool to kind of have those dynamics in that song. That's why I love playing it, because it's just it's like a roller coaster. Take you to a few different places.
And it's one of those songs that we've done so many times, so it's just kind of dialed. You know what I mean? Like we just kind of know where each other's going to be at musically, and it's like just a fun one to just kind of just groove through. You know what I mean?
What about "Take Me Away"?
"Take Me Away" is sort of like, it's definitely another one of those rock-oriented songs, like very like bluesy rock and roll. Kind of wrote it at a point in my life where like I was very stressed, you know, and like music is such a relief for me. It's such like, you know, at some points in my life, it's been such like a coping mechanism. And like the lyrics, like, you know, I'm broke, you know, my girl left me, my car broke down. Like those kind of days where like everything just seems like it's going wrong. And you're like, take me away. You know what I mean? I kind of wrote it at a point in my life where where I was like stressed. I didn't know where I was going to live. You know what I mean? I was like maybe 20, 21 years old, and you don't have a lot of money. You know what I mean? Your car breaks down. You're like, what am I going to do?
Right.
And it's just kind of like a release, you know, like that song I wrote is kind of like a release. And then like we started playing it, and it sort of just like clicked, and it was like, man, this is so fun to play. Like, this is such a fun song to do. And you're kind of just like getting that sort of like stress out, that sort of like stressful emotion out of your body via music, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of people can relate to situations like that. Like, everybody has stuff in their life that like doesn't, you know, go right all the time.
Yeah.
So that's one of those songs that I feel like a lot of people can connect to.
Yeah. You feel like you tap into something with that one?
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like every song that we put out, you know, you're tapping into some sort of emotion or just some sort of feeling or just place, you know, place in life or place in time. And I think like when you do that as a musician, like if you can put out like what you're really feeling and like where you are, you know, then like people can really connect to it, you know, because, you know, everybody has stuff like that in their life. Everybody has ups and downs, and hopefully like it makes some people feel better, helps people do something, you know?
One of my favorite things about your songwriting skills, and this is kind of like right hand in hand with just blues, rock and roll. It's like a lot of the songs and the lyrics that you write, you know, it is talking about like, oh, these negative things that are going on, but it's portrayed in such a positive light, you know, like when you sing that and when you put that out there, it's not like, man, life sucks. My car is broken down. I don't have any money. Oh, you know, you're like almost making a parody out of it and like putting it out there in such a like a fun and energetic and positive light. And I think that like that's really special, and that's like a good trait that you have that is really cool. And I think that isn't just like who you are as a songwriter. I think that's just like inevitably who you are as a person, and you get to see that through your songwriting. And I think a bunch of people might not realize that because you are, you know, you got that optimism, and you shitty things will happen to you, but then you'll make the most out of it, you know. So
I appreciate you. Yeah. And I think like on that note, like when like you know, songs like Take Me Away or like Sky Is Falling, you know, like about like going through a breakup or someone leaving you or whatever, it's like when you sing it like out loud to like, you know, at a performance, it's like in such a more like optimistic light because like people hear it and they're like, yeah, like we're in this together. Like, I feel that same way. You know what I mean? We're like, that's happened to me, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's Take Me Away in particular. Like I wrote it at a stressful time in my life. Like, I think I just gotten back from like England.
I think it was around that time.
And I had nowhere to live. Like sleeping on my parents' couch. And they're like, okay, like find a house. Like you got to get out of here. And I moved in with Will Dobb, our buddy Will Dobb. And like kind of just came up with that. Like my car broke down. Like it's very like, you know, real stuff that happens in your life, you know, and just kind of put it down on the page, and it came out as Take Me Away. Yeah.
What about My Tree?
My Tree is sort of like in the same way that, you know, in Take Me Away, you're trying to get across like that sort of stressful emotional state. I think My Tree I wrote like kind of at a low point, but to me, it's like a very like hopeful song. You know, it's like dealing with what's going on in your life. You know, I wrote that song at a point in life where I was kind of lonely, you know, but I really do feel like some of the best material, I feel like a lot of songwriters and musicians can relate to this. Like a lot of the best art, a lot of the best music, best lyrics, whatever, kind of come to you at a point where like, you're not necessarily depressed, but like maybe you're not at your like best. You're kind of at a lower point, you know?
You've thrown out some of your best music post breakup. I mean, like anytime Logan's like, "Oh man, this is not really working out for me," I'm like, "Dude, this is about to be awesome."
I mean, it's true, you know, like when you're going through
Man's
something,
about to go off.
let him cook.
Keep this boy in the kitchen.
Like when you're dealing with something like that, you know, like a lot of times, like there's a lot of emotions in you, like there's a lot of stuff happening, you know, and like I've always, instead of like, you know, turning to something negative, like I've always just tried to like harness that and like make it something like beautiful, you know what I mean? Like make it into a really killer song or, you know, or even like musically, I feel like guitar has like helped me so much. Like I feel like a lot of times I can communicate better with like my guitar than I can like vocally or like lyrically.
Yeah.
But My Tree was one of those songs that I wrote at kind of a low point, and it's just like at that time I was just spending like 6 hours a day in my studio just playing guitar and like writing songs. I was just like, you know, I'm not feeling so great. I'm just going to go in here and just, you know, just push it out, you know? And there's like some aspects of that song I really like the breaks are really weird. Like they're kind of like out of the time signature. And so you don't really hear stuff like that a whole lot.
Right.
And that was like a creative thing that I just was like, you know, I'm just going to try this like and see if it works. And it really did. And I think like the lyrics of that song as well, they're like, you know, sometimes this world never seems to change. Like it's like every day is the same old thing, you know, but as you go through the song, it definitely is like a hopeful song. Like you're like, this is where I am, but it's not always where I'm going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
You know? So that was like a really fun one to write. And like it's still one of my favorite songs to perform.
I've had a lot of people at our shows come up to me and say that that's one of their favorite songs too.
Yeah.
Which is ironic to me because it's definitely got some energy to it, but it's not one of the like super high end
Yeah.
bangers.
Yeah.
So
It's a change up. It's definitely
very
like
dynamic.
Yeah, it's like when we go out on stage, a lot of times we're like, boom, you know, like come out with a banger. So we're like Blitzkrieg style, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just like, and then like that one definitely kind of brings it down. It's more rhythmic and kind of more relaxed. And then it builds as the song goes on. It definitely has some like dynamics to it. But it is kind of like a change up in our set when we play it.
Yeah.
You know, like to Sam's point, it's like definitely a different sort of like level of energy.
Yeah.
So
What about You and Me?
So You and Me, personally is one of my favorite songs to perform because I just get to like go off.
Yeah, you get some of the,
You know?
the finger patterns you do are really technical and extremely fast.
Yeah, and that song I really wrote as a just sort of like an avenue to get that riff out.
Right.
You know, like I had come up with that riff and I was like, you know, like I've got like 100,000 songs in my notebooks and in my head, like, you know, that haven't been used and may never get used. But that's one where I was like, damn, like I gotta like figure out how to make this into a song so we can like put it out, you know?
Yeah.
And live, that song is so fun for me just because you kind of get to like toy with the crowd a little bit. You know, like I've done it so many times. Like a lot of these songs we've done so many times, like You and Me, I've played that riff so many times, even though it's like fast and technical. Like I just don't even have to think about it. Like I just like, it just kind of happens. So like I always like start playing it at a show and then like kind of look around to see what people are doing because I don't have to like be super, you know.
You just know it.
I just like know it.
Yeah.
And just like seeing people's like faces and stuff. And then there's like some breaks, like I'll speed up, I'll like take that riff and make it way faster, you know. So if you're like, whoa, I mean, it's like building even more. And
It's a headbanging song.
it's a headbang
It's
song.
like
It's high energy.
as soon as he's done with the guitar break and the drums come in, it's just like slow, kind of just like boom, da, do, 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 da. And then then the drums cut up, and then the heat's back to like, it's just like crazy
that was a good,
little finger stuff going on.
Good rendition, good impression.
Thanks.
By the way.
Yeah, we'll add that. We'll cover that next time.
What about Physical Voodoo?
Physical Voodoo is that like our last single that we put out?
It might be.
Yeah,
That was
that's
a minute
one of
ago.
our more recent songs, even though it's been
That's a fun
several
song.
years. It's a fun
like-
song.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
With that song, I kind of wanted to branch out a little bit in terms of like, rhythm scheme, and not necessarily like a different like time signature or anything, but like Sam, when I wrote that song, Sam had came up with that really cool like kick drum part in the beginning, and it's kind of just more like rhythmically, it's a little bit more like thumpy, and gives people to something to kind of like sway to. Lyrically, it's about like desiring either your girlfriend or like, having feelings about somebody, you know what I mean? And like having like an overwhelming kind of amount of feelings for someone. And I think like musically, like that one's really fun for us to do because there's different like sections of that song, like I'm kind of matching my vocals with the guitar in a lot of that, in the verse section. Mm-hmm. So that's fun for me, like being able to sing along with it. And then Sam's like really driving the rhythm behind it. And then like kind of how we come into the chorus is a little different because you'll be like, do, do, do.
Yeah.
Like the breaks are like a little,
Instead of like a
different.
cymbal and a kick, it's a cymbal and a snare, and like it's definitely different.
We kind of just, when we recorded that one too, we just kind of wanted it to be a little different than like some of the more classic rock sort of style stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And like it's still like one of my favorite songs to play. And I think like it breaks up our set nicely. Like it's like a good like change of pace. Kind of like My Tree, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
I love the songs we do with those breaks, like where the drums break out and then it's guitar. You're just kind of doing rhythm stuff because it just leaves room for people to breathe and air, and I think like that's really important. I think I don't know if it was a Grateful Dead drummer or somebody, but there's a book on it, and it's just like constant sound and constant music can be overstimulating sometimes.
Right.
So like allowing the listener to hit that reset button, it like punctualizes like the next part of the song.
Right.
So
Totally.
trying to emphasize stuff like that.
What about Oh My Lord? Oh My
Oh
Lord.
my Lord.
Oh my Lord.
Oh My Lord.
Loud.
Yeah, that one's like I really wrote that one like kind of similar to Physical Voodoo. Like you're just like you have like an overwhelming attraction to somebody. Like I wrote it about my lady, so I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that. But yeah, like another like dynamic sort of song. That one like you bring the wah in a little bit, and like I'm matching my voice, but then like it's very like drivey in the chorus also.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of has some more dynamic sections and then has some like cool breaks, like drum breaks, and then also just like a very like punchy, like straightforward sort of like rock chorus. So I really like doing that one too. That's a new one. That one's never been recorded, so you guys will have the first cut of that one.
Sweet.
So
Heck
A
yeah.
couple of those on the set list.
yeah, a couple of those, couple new,
fresh
couple
boobies.
newbies.
Yeah, new boobs.
Newbie boobies.
What about, you talked about a little bit about Wasted?
Wasted is like the most recent song that we've done. I just like wrote it in the last year.
Party anthem.
Party anthem. It's like how in Europe, like especially like England, like you'll go to a pub and like they're like singing drinking songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I was over there, I just thought that was so cool and like something that we don't do in the United States.
Right. And if we do, it's like Billy Joel's Piano Man or something.
Yeah.
Creed.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Something like that.
The new age pub song is
And
Creed.
I mean, that's another one that's like very like real. Like the lyrics of that song are very like real feelings that like I've had, you know, like I kind of wanted it to be like a drinking like anthem, you know, like something that like you could be at a bar at 1:15 and hear it and you're just like, I know this one, like we're going to sing it together, you know, something like that. And really also the point of that song too is like, you know, I don't drink all the time. You know, I work for a brewery, so I'm around beer all the time. And it's like when you do that, I'm kind of like, I can take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Like you're pouring it all the time. But like some of the best times that you have in your life are when you're wasted with your buddies. You know what I mean? Like you're just like going for it, having a great time. And like that's kind of what that song reflects. It's just like an epic night with your friends, like out drinking.
And there's key lyrics that are, you know, like the scars and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure.
It's like it's very pertainable.
Very
things
realistic.
we've experienced and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a very real song. That one's not very transparent. I mean, it's very transparent.
Yeah. What about Skies Falling?
Skies Falling, that's like probably our number one. Yeah. Like Sam said earlier, like I wrote that one like after a breakup, and you're just kind of getting those emotions out of you, you know? Like it a lot of times, like when you go through something like that, it really does feel like the world's ending. You know what I mean? It really does feel like the sky's falling on you. And that's basically the driving force behind that song.
Yeah.
And I also wanted it to be a very like memorable and like something that when you hear it, like you remember it and you can like sing it, you know, like something that's easy for people to kind of latch on to because everyone's been through a breakup. Everyone's been through something like that. And I think that song really like portrays those emotions very like literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the sky is falling, the sea's coming ashore. All that stuff is very metaphorical, but it's very like straightforward in terms of like, you know, this is what's happening in my life, and this is what this song's about, you know?
There's like a victory in that too, whenever you say like, I don't need her love no more.
Exactly.
You know, it's like overcoming that and then getting to the other side of it. And I think that's like the camaraderie and the cheerfulness behind it. It's like, wow, you know what? Screw that. I don't need your love anymore anyways, you know, I'll be just fine on my own. And I think that's really, really cool and fun. That's the song that we'll play live and they'll be like, there's been times where there's literally been like 100 people singing it back to us. I was like, that was one of the most special live moments that I've ever seen in one of our shows. I was like, how do this many people know the lyrics of this song? Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. I guess so I like to leave our conversations with opening it up to you all and just saying, is there anything else that you would like to talk to that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
I could talk about anything.
I could talk about anything.
Oh man.
That's okay if there isn't, you know, I just like to give you all the open space if you want it.
I know like such a huge part of this show and what you guys are doing is about like North Carolina and like how, and you know, all the acts on this series are North Carolina acts and musicians. And I know like one thing that you guys had asked us about was like, how has North Carolina like shaped our group and our music? And for me, like North Carolina is the best state in the United States. It's such a cool place because it kind of has a little bit of everything. And I think like that has influenced our music, you know, vastly. I think, you know, like we're from Wilmington. There's a lot of like, you know, surf rock and like punk rock and sort of like, you know, grungier stuff, beach music, stuff like that. There's also a lot of like reggae where we're from. Mm-hmm. You know, our buddy Michael Akins was like in a killer reggae band for a long time. There's a lot of like, you know, reggae stuff in Wilmington as well. And then like, you go to the mountains, like I spent some time in the mountains, there's a lot more like folk and sort of like bluegrass and Americana, you know, stuff like that. And then like in the cities, you hear a lot of like more pop stuff or more, you know, sort of like just what you hear on the radio or like
hip hop even.
Hip hop or just anything. And I think like being from North Carolina, we have such a wide variety of music here. It's like such a melting pot for musicians because you have like the beach, you have like there's a lot of like big universities here. There's like cities, you got the mountains, like there's just a lot going on like musically. And I think like that's influenced our music a whole lot, you know? And like I said, it's the best state in the country. Like it's just like the coolest place to live.
It's like on the East Coast. It's the only place you can really go where you have like good temperature water. You get to hop in at the ocean. You have tons of lakes, and then you have the mountains. So like the diversity of interests that people have is like, it just keeps things so interesting. You know, you can stay in one little area and a lot of the people would be the same type of way, but you drive 2 hours down the road and then there's just like, it's like you're in a totally different country, almost, you know, totally different types of people.
Yeah.
And that's extremely refreshing. And, you know, you get to hit that reset button and, you know, it's just not a static way of living. You know, we're fortunate enough to go from the mountains and back a lot to play shows. I'm really grateful for those opportunities. And just the people that we meet along the way. We meet so many cool people and we'll like go to a different area and we'll like see someone that comes back to one of our shows that we haven't gotten to see for a while, hang out with them afterwards. And yeah, I know we're extremely grateful to you guys for this opportunity to come here.
Oh.
I don't know if we told you how excited we were, but we have been, I mean, for months now, this has been number one on our list. Yeah, PBS, dude, Mom, you won't believe it, you know? So it's just, we're so incredibly grateful for this opportunity. So thank you. And
yeah, we appreciate you guys a whole lot.
Oh, well, we appreciate
We're so stoked.
we appreciate y'all. So thank you so much for being on. I mean, the pleasure is all ours. I mean, we were incredibly excited to have y'all in. I mean,
that means a lot.
I mean, you all have been so gracious with your time and also just, you know, your feedback and hanging out with us. And it's just been really great. So thank you so much for being here and being on the show.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, of course.
It's been awesome, man. It's been a dream. It's been super cool.
Right on. Thanks for joining us on the Shaped by Sound podcast. If you'd like to hear some of the songs we discussed today, you can find them on our website, pbsnc.org/shapedbysound, or find us on the PBS North Carolina YouTube page. Thanks for listening.